There's a question that can quietly empty a room inside you. Someone asks it kindly, over coffee, at a dinner where everyone else seems to know exactly who they are. On a form you're filling out at 1 a.m. So, what do you actually want to do with your life? And you smile. You say something reasonable. And underneath the smile, there's a small, private panic, because the honest answer is, you don't know. You've been waiting for it to arrive, the way it seems to arrive for other people, like a lightning bolt, like a voice from the sky, like a calling with a capital C that finally taps you on the shoulder and says, this is what you're for. And it never comes. So you assume it was never meant for you. That some people got handed a purpose at birth, and you got handed a to-do list. I want to tell you something that took me a long time to believe. The answer isn't missing. It was never far away. It's just standing so close to you that you've stopped being able to see it. Because here's the strange thing about a real gift. It doesn't feel like a gift from the inside. It feels like nothing. It feels like the most ordinary thing in the world. Think about a fish for a moment. A fish spends its whole life in water. And if you could ask a fish to describe water, it wouldn't be able to. Not because the water isn't there, because it's everything there. It's so constant, so total, that the fish has no distance from it. You can only notice what you can step outside of. Your gift is your water. The thing you do so naturally that you don't count it as doing anything. That's exactly the thing you can't see. Because it costs you nothing, you assume it's worth nothing. Because it comes easily to you, you assume it comes easily to everyone. You look at the thing you're best at, and your brain files it under, well, obviously. Anyone could do that. They can't. That's the part you keep missing. The people around you have been watching you do it for years. The friend who always ends up sitting next to you when they're falling apart, because somehow you make the unbearable feel survivable. You think you're just listening. They think you're doing something almost no one can do. The one everyone hands the messy spreadsheet to, or the broken plan, or the group that can't agree, because you can see the shape of a thing when it's still chaos. To you, it's obvious. To them, it's a kind of magic they don't have. We are almost blind to our own gifts, precisely because they are ours. They feel like the floor we're standing on, not the thing we're holding. Carl Jung had a word for this. He called it vocation, but not in the small sense of a job. He meant it almost like a summons. He wrote that the person who has a vocation hears a voice from the inner self, an inner law that calls them toward something, even when the outer world has no idea what to do with them. And notice what he's saying. He's not saying you go out and acquire a purpose, like a qualification. He's saying there is already something in you with a direction of its own, and the work is to stop drowning it out long enough to hear it. The problem is that most of us have spent our whole lives learning to listen to everything except that voice. We learned early what got approval, what got a good grade, a proud parent, a safe income, a nod from people we wanted to impress. And slowly, without ever deciding to, we started sorting our own instincts into useful and pointless, and we threw away the pointless ones, some of which were the truest things about us. So the search for your purpose isn't really a search outward, into the world of careers and options, hoping the right one lights up. It's a search back, toward the things you already loved before you learned they didn't count. So how do you actually find it? Let me give you the signals. Not a personality quiz. Not 5 steps to your dream life. Just the places where this thing tends to leave fingerprints. The first signal is this. Notice where you lose time. You know the state I mean. You sit down to do something and you look up and 2 hours are gone and you didn't check your phone once and you're not tired. You're somehow fuller than when you started. The psychologist Mihály Csíkszentmihályi called this flow, and it's one of the most reliable maps we have to a person's real aptitude, because flow doesn't happen just anywhere. It happens at a very specific meeting point, where something is hard enough to hold your full attention, but matched closely enough to what you can do that you rise to meet it. And here's what I want you to feel, because I've said it before, and it matters. Flow is not flat. It's not lukewarm. It's not the absence of intensity. It burns just as hot as adrenaline, but the two run on completely different fuel. Adrenaline borrows energy from your future self. It runs you on fear and deadline and dread, and it always sends the bill later. Flow generates energy from the present moment. You walk away from it with more than you came in with, so pay attention to what puts you there. It won't always be grand. It might be writing, or fixing things with your hands, or untangling a problem, or making a nervous person laugh. The activity is almost less important than the state. The state is the arrow. Follow where it points. The second signal is even simpler, and it's the one from the start. Notice what feels light, not easy in the sense of requiring nothing. Light in the sense that the effort doesn't feel like a cost. There's a kind of work that drains you no matter how good you get at it. You can perform it, even perform it well, but every hour of it takes something out of you and gives nothing back. And there's another kind that asks a lot of you and somehow leaves you lit up. This is the difference between a talent and a performance. A performance is something you learn to do because it was rewarded. You can be excellent at it and quietly resent it your whole life. A gift is something you'd reach for, even if no one clapped. The tell is what happens on the inside while you do it, whether you're braced against it or leaning into it. And I need to be honest with you here, because I don't do the cheap version of this. Feels light does not mean feels effortless forever. Real mastery has grind in it. There are dull stretches and hard days in absolutely everything worth doing. What I'm pointing at is quieter than that. It's the baseline hum underneath the effort. Some work you push against, some work pulls you. Learn to tell the two apart, and you already know more about yourself than most people learn in a lifetime. The third signal you can't find alone. Ask the people who know you. There's a simple idea in psychology, sometimes drawn as the Johari window, the notion that there's a part of you that's plainly visible to everyone else and completely invisible to you. Your blind spot, and your gifts tend to live right there in the blind spot because they're the water you can't see. So ask, not, am I talented? That puts people on the spot, and they'll just reassure you. Ask something better. When do you picture me at my best? What do people come to me for? What do I do that you don't think I even notice I'm doing? The answers will surprise you, because they'll name things you've been dismissing for years as too small to matter. The friend who says, "You're the reason I didn't give up that year," and you don't even remember doing anything. The colleague who says, "You explain things so people stop being scared of them. Write these down." Especially the ones that make you go, "Oh, that's nothing. That's not nothing. That's the water." Now, let me hand you the honest caveat, because without it this whole thing turns into a lie you'll blame yourself with later. Your gift will not always announce itself as a single, obvious passion. The advice to just follow your passion has quietly wrecked a lot of people because it makes them feel broken for not having one burning, pre-installed calling. For most of us, it doesn't work that way. Interest is often something that grows. You get a little good at something, and the getting good makes it more interesting, and the interest makes you better, and around, until one day you look up and realize the thing you now love was something you were only lukewarm about at the start. So don't wait to feel certain before you begin. Certainty is usually something you earn on the far side of a lot of ordinary practice, not a feeling you're supposed to have at the door. The lightning bolt is mostly a myth. What's real is a direction, a faint, persistent lean, and the willingness to follow it before it's proven. And it doesn't have to be your job. Let me say that clearly, because it frees a lot of people. Your gift and your income don't have to be the same thing. Sometimes the world will happily pay for what you're best at. Sometimes it won't, for a long time or ever. And that says nothing about the worth of the gift. A calling isn't a business plan. It's a way of being alive that you owe it to yourself not to abandon, whatever pays the rent. There's a line I come back to from the theologian Howard Thurman. Someone asked him how to know what to do with a life, and he said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and go do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive." I think about that a lot, because it quietly reverses the order we're all taught. We're taught to scan the world for a slot and shrink ourselves to fit it. He's saying, start from the aliveness. Start from the thing that lights you up when no one's watching and no one's paying and no one has said it's allowed. That aliveness is the signal. It was never in the way of the answer. It was the answer the whole time. Aristotle believed every living thing has a kind of built-in flourishing it's straining toward, an acorn toward an oak, a person toward their fullest form. And Abraham Maslow put it almost bluntly, thousands of years later, what a person can be, they must be. There's a restlessness that lives in an unlived gift, a low background dissatisfaction that no amount of comfort ever fully quiets, because some part of you knows it's carrying something it was never meant to keep folded up. You don't need to find a grand purpose this week. You just need to stop throwing away the evidence. Take seriously the thing that feels too easy to count. Follow the state that gives you more than it takes. Believe your friends when they tell you what they see. And then lean, just slightly, in that direction. Before you feel ready. Before it's proven. Before anyone gives you permission. Because the answer to that question that empties a room, you've probably been standing on it your whole life, not looking hard enough, looking too far. If this reached something in you, subscribe. This whole series is about the lessons nobody sat us down and taught. Like the video, so it finds the next person who needed to hear it, and then do the real work in the comments. What's the thing that comes so easily to you that you've never let yourself count it as a gift? And if you don't know, tell me what your friends always come to you for. Sometimes the people around us can see our water long before we can. I read these. I'll see you in the next one.